us now is Carrie Krawiec. She is a therapist at the Birmingham Maple Clinic. With us today on the MegaCast. Carrie, thank you for being with us again.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So it's a new year. A lot of people have set their New Year's resolutions, maybe even began working on fulfilling those New Year's resolutions. But often we hear about those resolutions not lasting very long. And there's a certain day known as Quitter's Day that is quickly approaching. Can you tell us a little bit about what that day typically is and psychologically why when people set these resolutions and they go into the new year with these big goals, that by that certain date, they tend to have either relaxed those goals or given up on them altogether?
Sure. So Quitter's Day came out of research done by an exercise app that observed their users and said that by the second Friday of the month of January, most people had abandoned the routines that they had started with full gusto at the start of the year. And this year in particular, it'll be even shorter because most people don't start on a weekend. They start fresh on a Monday. So our New Year's resolutions probably started the 3rd and might only make it to the 14th. So psychologically, you asked why do people give up and why do people quit? And really the most important answer is that people make vague, unreachable goals. They make goals that they don't have a lot of control over. And then by the time of the second weekend, like you said, they want to relax them. They want to have the freedom to do what they want to do without the pressure of a goal that's really too hard to reach. So the remedy is to really make small, daily, specific behavioral goals, something that you can control. So taking the common goals, of course, are losing weight or saving money. But who knows what might come up, what expense might come up or if someday your weight goes up, someday it goes down. It might not be because you're doing anything wrong. And instead brainstorming all of the little things that go into that and then just choosing one, and instead of quitting at 2 weeks, using every 2 weeks to evaluate what days was I successful, what days I wasn't, what things made it for me easy to do my daily task, what things got in the way. Do I need to adjust it? Is it too hard to do a daily hour-long exercise? Should I move it to 30 minutes? Then let's evaluate the next 2 weeks.
So often these accomplishing goals, it simply comes down to motivation. And while at one point somebody might be hyper motivated to approach those goals with that full gusto and really move to accomplish them, there are other points where they may not have that inspiration at all, and that's where these resolutions and even smaller goals, as you said, start to kind of fall apart a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about talk a little bit about the psychology of motivation and why in some cases it comes really easy to people, but in other cases it may wane and collapse some of these goals quite quickly?
Sure. I think part of what keeps us motivated is when we're reinforced. So when you're getting either the feedback from other people that you're doing great or looking great, or you're able to track your own progress, like using an app or even stickers on a calendar or something, is that when we are able to stay motivated when we see our success, when with some of these bigger goals, and especially in such a 2-week time period, which is so brief, you may not see the success, or with something like I said, like weight loss or saving money, you may have an unexpected expense, or you may have a day where the scale doesn't match how you've been working, and then that motivation goes away. So if we can build in other forms of reinforcement, like I said, just tracking your own daily progress and congratulating yourself, enlisting the support of someone else to track your daily progress and have them congratulate you and offer you that feedback that you're doing well and working hard, those will help keep the motivation going. We need something to reinforce us. Also building in your own reinforcement, like, not just, well, because I've made it 2 weeks, now I get my next weekend off, but maybe because I've made it 2 weeks, there's something else I can use to encourage myself, a trip to the, nail salon or something, use something maybe outside, something is just a treat. That is also not necessarily connected to reversing the goals you've been working on.
And so when people are setting these goals, in some cases, what helps to keep motivation high in these goals that are being set is having a strong reason why you're approaching these goals, why you want to accomplish this. Where should people be starting as they're setting these goals and they're trying to find that why statement, so that, like you said with setting those goals, they're not too big of a goal that ultimately seems so overwhelming, and 2 weeks in you're not seeing that full progress, but that also your why statement isn't so broad that it becomes overwhelming.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it's such an important thing, and I'm working on this in therapy with some of my clients, right? Like when we take apart those whys, you say it, I want to be more healthy, and it's like, but why, but why, but why? And challenging, do you really, if your behaviors aren't matching your goals, then you don't really trust yourself, to be honest, right? Because there's a mismatch there. And so I do think having people really work with being really honest with themselves is your why needs to be something that you yourself believe in, and so if it's, well, I want to quit smoking because I want to be more healthy, and it's like, okay, do you really want to be more healthy? And if you do, then you need to be sort of reminding yourself that, revisiting that, and enacting your behaviors that match with what your stated goal is.
We're joined by Carrie Krawiec. She is a therapist at the Birmingham Maple Clinic, joining us on the MegaCast. And so we're moving from New Year's resolutions to the ongoing and continuing pandemic. It seems we're at a point where we've never been before, where the majority of the public just seems to be over it. We have a large number of people that just seem to be like, I'm just tired of dealing with this. I don't want this to continue to be something that we're thinking about all the time. It's been really overwhelming. And want to go back to the old normal. What should we be doing to, as a collective community, but also as individuals with individuals in our life, to not curb that mindset necessarily, but to refocus people's mindset to continue to take the crisis that we're dealing with seriously, but without undercutting their opinion and their feelings in the process?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that's so important, right, is that any fantasy, setting our reasonable expectations, any fantasy that there's a return to an old normal is not at present, right? That any of our strategies right now really need to be about adapting and acceptance of what is currently happening and what is likely to happen moving forward, which means, tolerating a great more deal of ambiguity and uncertainty. You may plan vacations, or you may plan multiple, but you may not get to go on every single one of them. And to set reasonable expectations, there are chances that you will have to adjust. That we just got the school email yesterday. There's a good chance that there might be changes to in-person learning or transportation, that things that, we had gotten back accustomed to may go away again. And so accepting that part of what our new normal is flexibility and adjustment. And we have done it, and we have been disappointed, but we have also gotten through it. So offering, sort of encouragement to yourself that, yes, you may have to change plans or change, you might not be able to go to this wedding or that event. You may have to make adjustments, but you will get to go to something sometime. It just won't be all of the things.
I'm joined by Carrie Krawiec. She is a therapist at the Birmingham Maple Clinic, joining us today on the MegaCast. And so just a couple months ago, on November 30th, of course, we had the tragic shooting at Oxford High School. And in the wake of that shooting, we had a mass of threats that were being made against other schools in our local area, all throughout the state of Michigan, and in fact, all throughout the country. These were becoming, unfortunately, pretty commonplace. That, on top of the continued situation with COVID-19 and all that uncertainty, and certainly the concerns for safety, how should parents be approaching discussions of returning to the classroom with their kids? Because while many schools have begun 2022 virtually due to a recent spike in cases from the Omicron variant here in Michigan, many are also putting in place plans to return to school or to go back to some sort of a hybrid method.
Sure. So hopefully that, we did just come off of the winter holiday break,
Yeah.
and that perhaps parents were able to use this time to assess their kids. But I think first is to expect, of course, for some kids and for some parents, there may be heightened anxiety. There may be more separation anxiety, maybe more tearfulness or resistance to going back, that parents should be watching that to expect some of it. But if it persists in intensity, frequency, and duration as we start moving, trying to get through the routine, that would be call for concern and to perhaps address an evaluation by a psychologist or physician to see if it exceeds what we would expect to see. I think also, monitoring, certainly monitoring the information that both the parents and the kids are getting from the news media, from social media. Is it too much exposure? Like we are hearing that cases are going up. It is something that kids are talking about. Deciding as a family how much of that information is important for your kids to know based on their ages, stages, and what they can handle. And perhaps cutting back if we're getting too much news scroll running, about death numbers or something. Perhaps that's a sign it's time to turn off the TV and do something else, because that's all exposure too. We talk about with the infection, we talk about viral load, and how much viral load you get it impacts how much infection and symptoms you get. The same is emotionally for all this information, whether it's about school violence, whether it's about death and disease. The more information we get, the more our symptoms explode. So to offer some tools to scale, do we need to scale back the devices? Do we need to look, evaluate what we're looking at and maybe make some choices that are a little lighter and brighter?
Carrie, we appreciate your time and your insight as people are approaching their 2022 goals, their New Year's resolutions, as well as continuing to navigate a complicated and a really tough situation with COVID-19 and other issues all throughout the state of Michigan. So we appreciate it.
Thank you.